Hey all, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying safe, and I hope you have everything you need. I'm going to start talking about some operant conditioning principles, and hopefully this will make sense, but if it doesn't, you can always catch me during my virtual office hours that are still the same listed on my syllabus, and ask me plenty of questions. All right, the first thing we're going to talk about is operant conditioning. Remember when we met last time, we were talking about classical conditioning, okay? And this time we're going to talk about operant conditioning. I'm hoping you remember the difference between classical and operant. Think about it for a second. Classical conditioning always involves involuntary behavior. Operant conditioning always involves voluntary behavior, okay? B.F. Skinner was the one that started operant conditioning, and he had something called the law of effect that is on your concept map. It simply states that if you do something and it's followed by a good outcome, you're more likely to do it again. If you do something and it's followed by a bad outcome, you're not likely to do it again. So for example, if you answer a question in class and I praise you or I give you candy, then you're more likely to do that in the future. If you answer a question in class and I slap you, you are not likely to do that again unless you're into that. Which is an interesting point, because what is a punishment for one person may not work for another. So for example, a kid that's being bad in the classroom, you might yell at them thinking you're punishing them, but really they're getting attention and it actually makes them worse. So you have to look at the behavior. Is it increasing or is it decreasing? If the behavior is increasing, it has to be reinforcement. If the behavior is decreasing, it has to be punishment. Okay, so always look at what is happening to that behavior when you're looking at a test. Is it going up? Is it going down? If it's going up, it has to be reinforcement. Beat that into your brain. If it's going down, it has to be punishment. Now, shaping is when we reinforce for successive approximations. Okay? Essentially, it's like baby steps. So let's say I have a rat in a cage and I want the rat to learn how to press a bar. Now, I could sit there and wait for the rat to randomly press the bar, but that would take forever, okay? And so they could press the bar and I throw in a treat and it might be another hour before the rat does it again. I throw in another treat and someday that might cause the rat to press the bar more, but I could use shaping. So here's what I'd do. First of all, if the rat just gets to the end of the cage where the bar is, I'm going to throw a treat in every time they wander to that end of the cage, okay? So pretty soon the rat's going to be hanging out at the end of that cage. And since I've done that, now the rat is more likely to touch the bar, okay? And so every time now they just touch it, I'm going to throw in a treat. I am no longer going to treat them just for being at that end of the cage. They have to do a little more for me and actually touch the bar. So now I have a rat that's sitting there with its hand on the bar. I have now increased the likelihood that it'll press on the bar, okay? So now it's only going to get reinforced when it presses on the bar. It's going to happen a lot faster than if you just waited for them to do that complete behavior. It's how we teach kids. First time you teach a kid to make the bed, you don't expect them to get it done well. You just want them to sort of kind of pull up their covers in a kind of sloppy mess. But that's not going to be good enough once they're 20 years old. So every time they have to do a better job to receive praise from you. All right, so that's shaping. Now let's talk about primary reinforcers and secondary reinforcers. Primary reinforcers directly fulfill a biological need, such as food, air, water, and yes, sex. Now, some of you are thinking, I can live without sex. And indeed, you no doubt can. But they're looking at it from the perspective of survival of the species. Okay, you need it for the species to survive. So it fulfills a biological need. Secondary reinforcers are things we want but don't need. Okay, stickers, praise, a new car, money. Money's an interesting one. You're probably thinking, we need money, okay? But again, it doesn't directly fulfill a biological need, okay? It can be used to get primary reinforcers, but unless you make a suit out of it to keep you warm or burn it for a fire, it is not fulfilling a biological need. I'm trying to think of the example I was going to give you. Oh, so okay, so a lot of times secondary reinforcers are related to primary reinforcers. So why do you want a sticker on your quiz? Because it means you did good. Why do you want to do good on a psychology quiz? So you can pass the course. Why do you want to pass the course? So you can graduate. Why do you want to graduate? So you can get a good job. Why do you want a good job? So you can get money to buy food, water, sex, whatever. Okay, so that's it for that screen. Let's keep moving here. Oops. So now we're going to talk about reinforcement, and we're going to talk about the difference between positive and negative reinforcement. Okay, positive. The first thing that jumps into our head is the idea that it's something good. That is absolutely not what it means here. It can be something good, it can be something bad. Okay, positive means you're adding something to the situation after a behavior is performed. Okay, so it can be something, I could be adding something good or bad. Okay, so it just means you're adding something after a behavior has occurred. Negative means after a behavior has occurred, you're taking something away. Again, it could be good or bad. So get those preconceived ideas of those words out of your head. Okay, so again, positive reinforcement, you're adding something good after a behavior to make a behavior more likely to happen in the future. I give you a sticker, okay, so that in the future, maybe you'll study a little more, okay? Negative reinforcement. This is the number one most confusing concept in all of psychology. Literally, they've tested it, and this is it. So in negative reinforcement, you're taking away something bad to make a behavior more likely to happen in the future. So I used an example in my other video. Pets are masterful at negative reinforcement. So Reggie, as I said already, he will bark and bark and bark at me until I get up and fulfill his needs. Okay, and once I've done that, he takes the barking away. Okay, so he's removing annoying barking to make me feed him, pet him, take him outside. Duncan, who you also met already, is really good at using negative reinforcement for belly rubs. So when we are laying in bed at night, he will squirm around, making it impossible for me to fall asleep until I rub his belly. So I'll rub his belly for a little while, and I'll start to doze off, and he'll start squirming again. Okay, so I'll start to rub his belly again. So he takes away the squirming if I rub his belly. Okay, so negative reinforcement is all about kind of avoiding a bad outcome. Nagging. I nag my husband about things until he does them, and then I take the nagging away. Women, you probably have tried those like hard headbands, right? You put a headband or a ponytail holder on your head because it takes the hair out of your eyes. Okay, so you engage in a behavior, putting a hairband on because it takes away something bad. Okay, but if you've ever used those hard headbands, they only stay on for a little bit because they hurt your head, right? So again, you take it off the behavior because it takes away the discomfort from having it on your head. So if you've ever noticed me in class, I will put my little hard headband on and off all day long because they are both negative reinforcement. Hopefully that made sense. Okay, examples of positive reinforcement. Again, we are adding something good to increase a behavior. So a child gets a cookie for cleaning their room. You get a sticker on your quiz for doing well. You get praise from your parents for good grades. Okay, all attempts to increase the behavior at the end of the sentence by giving you something good. The behavior will not always be at the end of the sentence, though. Examples of negative reinforcement. Your teacher has said that at the end of the semester, if you have an A before the final, you do not have to take the final. So you engage in the behavior of studying hard, you get the grade you need, and that bad thing that's been sitting there threatening you all semester is taken away. Medicine is all about negative reinforcement. Every time you take an aspirin, your headache goes away. Every time you take an antacid, your stomach ache goes away. There's very few medicines that aren't working on negative reinforcement. I already told you the example about the ponytail holder. Last one, a child does good grades so they don't have to do their chores for a week. Okay, so they engage in a behavior, it increases, getting good grades, and then something bad goes away. All right, I'm going to pause there and start a new video before I talk about schedules of reinforcement.